How's it going? Welcome to From the Forums, my weekly podcast deep diving into the unhinged world of Premier League fan forums. I cherry pick 4 teams from the weekend to see which ones are worthy of a deep dive into their comments section, see what fans are thinking, see what fans are feeling. As always, please take this opportunity to like, subscribe and follow wherever you're watching or listening. It really does help boost the algorithm for what is a pretty new football channel here. And I'm going to start with Nottingham Forest, who are a team that I've focused on a couple of times so far in From the Forums. And that's because they're so fascinating, aren't they? They've got so many changes to adapt to this Premier League season with managerial movement and Nuno coming, Ange coming and going, and now Sean Dyche as well makes it a really fascinating club to watch. They beat Leeds United 3-1 at home. I looked at Come On You Reds forum to see what Forest fans were saying about this latest performance and how they feel about Dyche ball. Great subs, huge result. First half was pretty poor, but I'm delighted. Hutchinson made such a difference. Omari Hutchinson has had limited game time, hasn't he, so far this season? But I think the substitutes Sean Dyche made in this game were the key factor in the victory, the biggest one being Hutchinson. And that switch to 2 wingers and the kind of width that provided, the creativity from out wide, which led to goals, didn't it, at the end of the day? And yeah, an inspired substitution from Dyche, and Hutchinson, I think, starting to make a claim for more minutes going forward, I think. Hutchinson has pace, tries to run past players and get into the box. It's criminal. We haven't seen more of him, but let's hope we get some confidence in our players now. I think the reason you haven't seen more of him is because he's such an enterprising attacking player, and there are some games where I think Forest have, obviously with different managers as well, been more conservative. And I think you have to be that way against certain opponents. That might be the case when Forest play Liverpool. But I think as an option off the bench especially, Hutchinson's fantastic, isn't he? And I think in games that are a bit more winnable, like this one against Leeds, which, you know, they were poor. They were really poor at the City ground. Hutchinson can have a real impact, and what a fresh pair of legs to bring off the bench. Let's check out another comment. It's going to be a tough decision from Dyche versus Liverpool. Feels more of a Dominguez game and bring Hutch on later. Exactly as I was saying, yeah, I think this is more suited to having Dominguez, who is the conservative option, I guess, and not really throwing everything against Liverpool in a reckless way, which can easily happen when you've got such a talented team at your disposal. But Hutchinson has proved he's a great option for Sean Dyche, and I think he's kind of reminded Forest fans why they signed him in the first place. A great talent. And let's look at Brentford 3, Newcastle 1 and see what Newcastle fans are saying about their recent form, because they're back to Champions League football again and they're finding it difficult, aren't they? This 2 games a week is draining. I want to see what Toon Forum has to say about this latest result. Burn is a liability. How can you not sub off a player who's on a yellow and you can see he's getting torn one by Ouattara? Kiss top 5 goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's an exaggeration to say that their top 5 progress is gone, because it's so open in that top part of the Premier League, isn't it? But Dan Burn had an absolute shocker, and that left-back experiment has to be finished now. I think that's one of the silver linings of him being sent off, is that he won't be there in the next game, because Dango Ouattara tested him so badly and he just wasn't up to it. His mobility, his pace couldn't match Ouattara's, and he should have been sent off sooner, really. Yeah, a nightmare game. Let's check out another comment. Howe keeps playing the same 12-13 players because the backup players aren't up to it in his opinion. But then we end with everyone either crocked or knackered. We need to rotate the team even if the replacements are questionable. Yeah, we went down this path, didn't we, in Newcastle's last Champions League campaign. There was just burnout quite quickly from quite a lot of the core squad. I don't know if it's a case of trust with Howe. I think it's more, he's probably making a statement that he's not being backed enough. You look at the Newcastle bench and it doesn't inspire a huge amount of confidence for a team that has aspirations to stay in the Champions League. And I think that's what Howe's most worried about. The drop-off from the first 11 to the bench is probably one of the steepest in any of the top half Premier League teams. And they need to fund that if they're going to kick on. And that's the problem with PSR at the minute. Newcastle cannot really fund too much. But I guess they look at a team like Brentford and see the investments they've made in players that didn't cost an arm and a leg and say, why can't we do that? So I understand the frustration, I really do. But I think Howe is frustrated as well. Let's check out another comment. I think we'll steady the ship when the 2 injured fullbacks and Visser are back in. But you cannot play a pressing game 2 games a week without a huge degree of rotation. Yeah, I think that's it. I think fatigue will creep in. I think Crystal Palace found that out to an extent when they went on their losing streak, and Newcastle are the same. I think Visser is a player that will make a difference, definitely. A lot of the attacking burden is on Voltemada at the minute, who's doing a brilliant job. But I think by his own admission, Nick Voltemada is not a target man. He's not a number 9. He's more of a number 10, laying the ball off to his teammates, isn't he? And an interplay kind of player, rather than an out-and-out striker, despite the fact that he's scored some great goals so far in his Newcastle career. But defensively, I think those fullbacks need to come back. Hall and Livramento, I think, are a missing spark in that Newcastle team, defensively and going forward. Okay, Aston Villa 4, Bournemouth 0 is the game I'm going to look at next, with an Aston Villa focus, really. I've not really talked about them much this season, but I went on the Heroes and Villains forum just to see what Villains fans are saying about this performance, which is arguably their best of the season so far. Great team performance, did well to keep Semenyo and Clivert quiet. Special mention to Emi's free kick and big Emi's flying tip over the bar. Yeah, Emi Buendia is a really nice addition to the team, isn't he? Coming back to some kind of fitness, playing more minutes, and becoming an important player. And of course, Emi Martinez producing the kind of saves that we saw in this game at the crucial moments as well really makes a difference, I think, to a team's momentum. And I think there was a point in this game where Bournemouth were getting back into it and applying pressure on Villa, and I think it was the penalty save, wasn't it, that kind of stopped that in its tracks, and then Villa kicked on from there. They've strung quite a few good results together since the transfer window closed. I think that was important to them to get that out of the way, and that kind of malaise around the club is gone, and Unai Emery isn't being questioned anymore as if he ever should have done in the first place. But 4-0 against this Bournemouth team is fantastic. Is the sentiment still positive elsewhere? Let's have a look. On this form, Buendia wins Player of the Year, and what a story that will be. Brilliant first half from him today. Player of the Year might be a stretch. I don't think he'll play as many minutes as you'll probably imagine him to, but he's making himself kind of undroppable at the minute. His technique has never been in doubt. I think that skill has been missed, I think, from the Villa attack since Grealish left, and I think he was meant to be the Grealish replacement, wasn't he? Hasn't had chance to do that with the injuries he's had, but amazing to see him coming back to some kind of form, and it was a brilliant first half. Who knows, if he puts a run of form together, Buendia could be a key player for Villa this season. It's easy to see that happening. One more comment from Villa fans. Ollie is key for me. We cannot afford for him to continue his dry spell for much longer. Yeah, I think the goals in this game were kind of from distance, weren't they? Or opportunist efforts rather than working into the box and letting Watkins finish it off. He's a player of quality. I think he's got the World Cup to try and work towards as well. So he'll know. I think Watkins is his own biggest critic when it comes to dry spells like this. But I do think it's a matter of time. If they keep creating movement and space around him, he will be on the end of one of those goals, definitely. But I think the fact the team are compensating for his dry spell with goals from elsewhere is super encouraging for Emery and his entire team. Okay, final game of this week's podcast. Everton 2, Fulham 0. Fulham have gone under the radar for me a little bit this season. I don't think I've spoken about them yet, but they're in this unique position where they're going to do well in the table most seasons, around mid-table. And like many teams, they want to kick on and improve. But Marco Silva is in the last year of his contract. That is rumbling in the background, and there's a bit of negativity around what his future might hold, and I think the club feels that as well. And so whenever a dry spell of form comes in, like it is now, they start looking like relegation candidates all of a sudden, even though I still think that's out of the question. And Marco Silva gets the spotlight turned on him completely, because Fulham have got to make a decision about whether to get rid of him and make it better before he continues this negative cycle that he's in. So let's see what fans think, shall we? Maybe Silva's angst and negativity on the sidelines is permeating to the players. It's felt like a lot of doom and gloom from Silva for quite a while now. And then there's his yearly contract fiasco. Yeah, it can't help, can it? I think if the players don't know if he's going to be there next year, then why would they play for a manager that's only going to be there temporarily in their eyes? They're in a bit of a crossroads for Fulham right now, aren't they? Because they could easily use this international break to bite the bullet and go, let's just end this saga before it rumbles on throughout the new year and get somebody else in who could actually provide some stability and put an end to all those questions about his future. But then who is there out there to take the reins of Fulham at this moment in time that can continue the good work that Silva's done? Because Silva is a very good coach, but I think even he is finding it difficult to push through this tough spell when his head clearly is not really in the game, so to speak. Okay, let's check out one more comment. If things continue, Marco will eventually have to go. That's football. The only matter up for debate is how long Marco gets to change things. I think in an ideal world, Fulham do want Marco Silva to turn it around and sign a new contract and get back to that mid-table stability, I guess, that they're craving at the minute. But the Premier League's a lot more competitive this season. I think Fulham have just got to hope that there's 3 worse teams than them if they continue this way. Will Marco Silva be the person to guide them away from the relegation zone and back to some kind of stability? I don't think he'll get the chance to do that. I think this next couple of weeks might see them decide to bite the bullet and say, yeah, this isn't working anymore and we need a new direction, because Fulham have stagnated a little bit. They've not invested very wisely or very heavily at all, really. I think that's probably one of the biggest frustrations Marco Silva has at the club, and he's been quite vocal about the fact that he's not had the players or the new injection of players that he wants. So when that stagnation is there, where do you go next? You need a bit of freshness. But will the next manager, if there is one anytime soon, have a better opportunity to build the squad than Marco Silva's had this season? I'm guessing the money's not there, is it? So who knows? It's an interesting one. Fulham fans, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, an interesting crossroads for Fulham right now, isn't it? That's it for this week's From the Forums. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you've hit that like or subscribe button, thank you ever so much. This boosts the algorithm loads. I am a new channel, as I've said already. Any support is appreciated. Until next time after the international break, thanks for watching. See you soon.